Hi, my name's Rhoda Dakar, and you're listening to the Stateside Madness podcast.
Hi there, folks out there. I'd like you to meet Tommy McGuire and his combo.
Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, the one and only podcast of the official Madness American fan service. I'm Laurie, along with my co-host Polly, here to bring you news, reviews, and deep dives into the nutty sound of the British pop band Madness. Hello, Stateside Madness. Welcome to another exciting episode. I am so thrilled at who we've got in the studio today. But do you want to say hi, Polly?
Sure. Hi, Stateside Madness. And yeah, Laurie is thrilled. You can probably tell. Go ahead.
I've been working on trying to get him in for a good 7-8 months, I think.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking, of course, of the bed and breakfast man himself, Mr. John Hasler. And we have he'll be coming into the studio shortly and talking to us, not just about his days with Madness, but also some of the other really cool projects that he's been involved with.
All right, Madness fandom. So you'll know our guest, particularly if you watched Take It or Leave It. But if you're just in the know, you will recognize John Hasler as
the Bed and Breakfast Man.
The Bed and Breakfast Man, yeah. So the original singer for North London Invaders. You've got a long history with the Madness guys, and everybody's dying to hear about it. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Polly. Good to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Happy to do so. Laurie, why don't you kick things off with John?
Okay, so I guess let's kind of start at the beginning here. How did you fall in with this rather motley group of young lads?
By just an accident, I guess. I knew Lee from back in before the band was going. He had a little sabbatical away, a private school for a little while. I don't know how much you know about the history of the band there, but so I knew him before that happened. We used to go underage drinking in a bar together. Then cut a few years forwards, and I'd decided I wanted to be in a band. I'd got as far as buying myself an electrical guitar, a real cheap cheap copy. This was in the days of punk, and decided that I could be in a band, because before that it was the reserve of, I had the music kids, the ones that were really tutored and knew all that stuff and could read music and write it, and they played in the prog rock stuff, and that was what you thought. I never thought I could be in a band. And then punk came along and told everyone, no, rip up that rule book. Anyone could be in a band. So I thought, yeah, okay. So I had this guitar. Lee found out one night, he said, oh, you've got a guitar, would you like to be in my band? So I said, yeah, okay. So I went along, and we were practicing in the little church hall in NW5. And so we had two guitarists and a sax player and a keyboard player. I could play a 12-bar blues, was about it. And I taught Chris how to play a 12-bar blues. Because we were all really, really, well, apart from Mike, who knew what he was doing a bit, but the rest of us were pretty green amateur with a very large Harry.
So you were really building on that do-it-yourself punk ethos that was so big in the late 70s.
Totally, yeah. That was. We weren't into playing the music, but it was the belief that you could do it. So not long after, we had a few rehearsals. Make it a god awful racket, and we were at Mikey's house, and his brother was in the band, and they were set up in the front room, and all their kit was out, and I just had a little tryout on the drums, which was sitting there. And Mike said, "Hey, you're not bad at that." And, we got 2 guitars, we haven't got a drummer, so why don't you be the drummer? And, okay, fine. And I borrowed £60 off my dad. I bought a drum kit from a kid at school.
You really were the original drummer for the band then. That's awesome.
I was the original drummer for the band, yes.
But you've also worn a number of other hats.
I certainly had, yeah.
I believe you were the singer at one time.
I was, yeah. We kind of broke up, and band split up, over going to football rather than rehearsal. When Alex saw Mike, he was playing with another band, and I'd just gone to see him. He was hanging about waiting for them to turn up for rehearsals. And at that point, in the first lineup, I had written a couple of songs for the band, and that was before. Up to then, we just played covers of other songs. So I'd written a few songs. So I said, "Well, since you write the songs, the lyrics, why don't you try being the singer?" So, yeah, okay, I'll try being the singer. So I did, and we did that for a while. It's quite a different sound then. The one that did sneak through was the very first song I wrote, the very first song with the band was an original Madness number, which was Mistakes. Ended up on the B-side of the of One Step Beyond, but
I think we have a little bit of a snippet of you singing on an early version of Mistakes, so I'm going to play a little bit of that.
Okay.
All right.
And some other bits of pieces of songs crept into and were incorporated in other songs.
But could I ask you a question about your songwriting? So,
yeah,
I have always wondered the song "Believe Me,"
yeah,
which I know that you co-wrote with Mike Paterson.
Yeah,
is that about a particular person or incident, or is that like?
It's difficult. It's more. The thing is that. When it says co-wrote, it's a song I'd written when I was singing with the band, which Mike then took bits of and then wrote his own bits. So it is about a person, but not all that. I suspect it's about 2 different people.
Okay, so like kind of an amalgamation of what you wrote and what.
It's an amalgamation.
Okay.
Yeah. If that makes sense, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everything that I tell you, girl, every word that you hear, every little way is bad. Let me make myself clear.
So yeah, then I mean, I did that for a while, and it was we were played the school bop, and a few youth clubs, and playing around a bit. Moderate success, you know. We went down well with small but dedicated audience, and then I went away on holiday, and while I was away, they got offered a gig, quite a prestigious one, that they didn't feel they could turn down, and they didn't know how to do it, so they had to turn to Suggs, say, "Hey, can you deck for John, because he's away?" And he did, and it went down very well. And then they made the decision that they might stick with that lineup. So that was the end of my singing career.
You were the one that introduced Suggs to the band, weren't you, originally?
That is correct. Yes. Through a girlfriend I had at the time who knew him and said, "I think this guy would be good for singing." So I brought him along.
And I kind of get the feeling that you actually introduced a lot of the players. It seems like every story, somehow you're connected to it or at the center of it. Like you were the hub bringing everybody together.
Well, sort of. I mean, Lee, Mike, and Chris were friends from way back. So they were one sort of side to the band. But then I originally brought Chaz, Carl Smith, aka Chaz Smash. I brought him in when I started drumming with the band, and I just could see these three guys were quite a tight unit, and I felt a bit on my own. So I brought a friend along for a bit of moral support, and he started out playing bass guitar. He didn't really take to it, but that's how I got Chaz originally involved. And then when I was singing with the band, I got a guy I'd known from school, Gary, to come along and play the drums. And it was then through Gary that Mark Bedders became involved.
And that was Gary Dovey, right?
Gary Dovey, yes. Sadly, no longer with us, but yeah, Gary, I mean, he was a good drummer, but he was the wrong fit for the band, you know. But yeah, so Gary brought Mark in, so indirectly I brought Mark through as well. Then Mark brought Woody in. So it's a fluid connections, but yeah.
So it's not an exaggeration to say there would not be Madness without John Hasler.
And yeah, certainly. I think there would have been a band with Lee, Chris, and Mike. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, it was, you know, I can't take full credit, but I certainly played my part. That's for sure.
And as the band really, came around into their what we would call potentially the classic lineup, they didn't exactly kick you to the curb altogether. You still remained pretty close with them and were involved with the band.
Yeah, yes.
Even though you had moved out of having a functional position as one of the musicians.
Yep. Well, what happened was, so once the band had got its final lineup together, and, you know, these things, it's about chemistry, and it went with that lineup, it just clicked. And with great bands like Madness, it's always that the whole is much greater than the sum of the parts. And they really work like that. And so they got a gig at they talked themselves into a gig at the Dublin Castle, which wasn't a real proper music venue then. They did the odd little event, but it wasn't what it was. That's when they bit in the film which was true, where they went on and told the manager of the public house that they played jazz. Because we did do a 5/4 number, but so I suppose, you know, at a stretch we could say we did play jazz, but yeah, that was the first time at the end of the night they got money, and there was suddenly we've been paid, you know, which makes you a proper band. But nobody somehow kind of trusted each other to hold on to the money, which is why they asked me if I'd be their manager. And I said, yeah, okay, because I still love the band, you know, they were good friends, and so I started managing them. Yeah, from that point when we had the first paid gig.
didn't want to leave you behind, but your clothes won't step into line. Too much self-pity, not enough nitty-gritty. And just when you were looking pretty boring, pretty drab, out of date, colours bad, suit not suited, looking sad.
And what would that be like? Because you certainly weren't, the elder statesman of the group. You were their peer.
And they do seem a little bit unmanageable, if I'm being honest.
They do seem a little unmanageable, yeah. So was that challenging relationship wise?
Yes and no. I mean, it meant I had a little motorbike at the time, and that did a lot of business, a lot of mileage going around from house to house, backwards and forwards. Because it was a diplomat role really, and if somebody was complaining about something, I'd go and talk to them and try and understand what it was that where they're coming from, and then be able to go back to the other people and say, well, this is what's, and put my interpretation on it, and basically make things like become the oil in the engine, really, and make the cogs mesh together smoothly.
And that is no small feat.
No, it was full time. I don't think you can appreciate it until you do it. What it takes to keep that going, despite like being a marriage counsellor with
7 people.
But yeah, well, six at the time, because early days Chaz wasn't involved.
Right.
He was off away, and it was whilst we got a resident that same pub that we did the first paid gig at. They got a residency there, and it was whilst doing that residency that Chaz started turning up and doing this MC bit, and his whole role grew from that. So yeah, it was. I mean, there was some of the technical stuff of management, keeping an eye, booking the gigs and keeping an eye on the diary. But a lot of it is just about making sure everybody's happy with the way things are going, and when they're not, finding a way of sorting that out so that they are.
So how long did you continue on in that capacity before the band maybe outgrew your services?
I carried on doing that. We'd signed with Stiff Records. We'd done the 2-tone tour. Done a tour of the UK on their own. Done a small tour in the United States. And then it was not long after that things got a little bit unpleasant, really. And I got ousted. And they got in this guy who had previously worked for the record company, Stiff Records. He didn't last. I wasn't surprised that he didn't last, because I had worked with him. There's a bit of a collusion between him and the record company boss to get him in. Because I was tight with the band, and I was very much about the band's interests and about only do what they wanted. Whereas the record companies, they always want to be able to be in control and say, right, we want this tour, we want this album, we want it now, this happens now, this happens next, and they want to dictate how the band works. And so I was kind of a bit of a block to that. And there was a little campaign, definitely. There were some little dirty tricks, which at the time I didn't see. Here's a for instance. Every week, the record company would find out in advance what the chart position of the single is, so that they could then let the band know where they are in the charts. They had to know because they had to prepare if they had to do any television appearances. They fixed it so whenever the single had gone up in the charts, this guy from the company came down and went, "Hey, good news, guys. We've gone up. We're up to number 8. And they'd go, "Yeah, hooray." And then next week I'll be in the office and he'd go, "Oh, yeah, we've dropped down to 16, so you better let the guys know, John." So I'd be the one guy then going, "Oh, we've gone down." And that happened all the time. And that was no accident. Yeah, there's one time when he deliberately made me very late for an important meeting with the band. He offered me, I was about to get a cab from the record company up to the offices in Camden Town to meet the band. And he said, "Oh, I'll give you a lift. Don't waste money on a cab, I'll give you a lift." And then he stopped off to look into a shop on the way. I'll never forget it. It was in Hammersmith. It was selling Tiffany lamps. He goes, "I collect Tiffany lamps. I just want to see if they've got this rare one in." And he stayed and he was in there and I come out the car and I go, "Come on, we've got to go." And one minute. Eventually I just gave up on him and did get a cab. But by the time I got there, I was very late.
And this was pre-cell phone, so you couldn't just pick up the phone and call the band and tell them.
Yeah. Free cell phones couldn't have called in. Yeah. I mean, absolutely, completely deliberate. And there's a lot of little things like that. Those are just 2 instances of how you can make one person look good and the other person look bad.
It's so slimy. I'm so sorry that they did that to you.
Oh, it's the record company. It's, that's and I found that since it's a very common story. And the band was green as I was, so they didn't see it either. I didn't see it. They didn't see it. I mean, it's only afterwards looking back.
Right. Hindsight is always 20/20, as they say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it was, it was a shame, but it was a great time, nevertheless. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, as they say.
There you go. Could we talk a little bit? You mentioned the American tour, and as you might know, we're kind of the American affiliate of MIS.
Yep.
What was that like? And because I think that was probably the first time that most of you would have been in America. Is that
That's
correct?
Cool. Well, Mike had been before. He'd done a road trip. He'd done hired a car and driven across. He was always a bit ahead of everyone else. But no, for the rest of us, first time in America. And it was a small tour. It's playing small clubs. Did we do the Mud Club? I think we did the Mud Club in New York. Tier 3 we played. That was the club back then. And we did a little small place in Boston. It's one of those clubs where it's a restaurant upstairs and the club underneath. And that's when we found out that we got paid on the door, but we found out that actually if you're a restaurant customer, you got in for free. Oh, great. That's a good one. How come all these people are getting in down the back stairs? Oh, that's the deal. Right. It was a lot of driving around in a small van. But fascinating. It was amazing. It was a different world. I was sharing a room with Mark Bedford, and we were competing to do American things. Like, "Hey, look, I've got a TV dinner." I've got TV years, and then he beat me by going out for coffee and donuts at 4:00 in the morning. Which in the UK back then, that was everything shut at 11. So for New York, 24-hour city, that was something else. And I made the mistake. I went to a pizza place. It's a little booth place, and they had the different sized pizzas. And so I thought, I'm quite hungry. I have the large. Oh boy. I did not know what a large was until that thing came out. It barely fit through the hatch that they served through. It was a lot of fun.
Good evening. Hello. One's cold sausages. A pound's worth. Attention! Bridges. Sharky. Yes, sir. Nothing!
It couldn't have been too long after, though, that you are probably rung up and somebody says, "Hey, so we're making this little movie." And
yeah. That's true. That's true. Oh gosh, yes. Now, yeah. I did see them up through that movie. That's true. Initially, they were going to cover someone else to play me, and I think she was speaking to the guys in the band, so you can't give that. That's not right. Well, I got to play myself in the movie.
What was that like?
That's really weird. Playing yourself in a movie, doing things you only did a couple of years ago, especially when you got that costume guy going, "Oh, we've got you this to wear." No, I never wore that. No, yes, you did. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay, I'll wear that then. So yeah. And some of the stuff that happens in the film, it helps make the story run better. But you think, well, that's not quite what happened. But anyhow, we'll go along with that
For the sake of the narrative, right?
Yeah, sake of the paycheck. I mean, I did it really. Yeah, I had a very young daughter that she was born whilst we were making it. Well, she was born just after we made it. Was she? I can't remember now. Anyway, basically, by the time I got married and we had a baby, and so there was like bacon needed bringing home. I had to do that film already because I got paid to do it.
And what was that like, seeing yourself on the big screen? I mean, was that surreal?
It's always very odd. Yeah. Hearing yourself, it's odd hearing yourself played back, because obviously, when you're talking, the sound you hear is echoing around inside your skull. It's a different sound to the sound which is being projected out. Similarly, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're always just looking flat on. You never see the side view. So suddenly to get all the different sound and the different views, oh, do I really look like that? Oh, my goodness. But we had a bit of fun making it. And I'm pleased with the way it came out. I think it's a good little film. It's just for anybody who doesn't know anything about the band, just as a story of a band getting together and how it happens and how that comes about and the kind of journey that you go on. I think that's actually rings true for a lot of bands.
It's all eggs, bacon, beans, and a fried slice.
Did you hear the one? Yeah. The one they wrote in the papers just the other day. Well, would you believe it? What I said, they took it all the wrong way. Now you gotta be careful about what you say, 'cause they've got a bad habit. Will you read in between the lines?
So what did the remaining years of your close affiliation with Madness look like? Was it much longer after that American tour?
Not long after that. It wasn't long after we got back that. It ended quite badly. I was told there was a meeting. I had to go to because it's where they were discussing how I would work with this other guy, and he'd been with us on that American tour. He managed to worm his way on. He'd been sacked by the record company, which made him a bit more of a hero because now he could be present himself as, I'm up against them. I'm on your side, guys. And he managed to worm his way onto that tour as a tour manager, and he was useless. We didn't need it because we actually had an American tour manager. He couldn't understand why we brought a second tour manager with us. Anyway, I won't go into any details about why I thought at the time. I could see from that time why I thought that he really wasn't up to it. And why the band, I thought, well, you were there as well. You saw how, yeah, I mean, there was one time when he was driving us and he had to stop the car and jump past Mike Barson to drive because he couldn't manage it because he was the worse for wear. Put it that way. You know, that's horrendously unprofessional to take so much substances that you can't actually drive the band. That's not a good look. But somehow he still managed. So when they said you're going to work with him, I just was very upset. I thought with the birds, and I just didn't turn up for the meeting, and that was it. End off. So it ended quite abruptly. And then there was a couple of years really where I didn't really have much to do with the band. And then one day I just thought, no, this is silly. These guys, they're friends, and particularly Carl, who I've known since childhood. And I just had a couple of tickets. I was going to see Van Morrison at the festival hall. I just phoned Carl up out of the blue and said, yeah, I'd tried to come in to see Van Morrison with me. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So I did that and went to see the band next time they played, and everything was fine after that, really. Well, one of the things around that is after we did part ways, I did have a contract of sorts with the band, which were drawn up when I was negotiating the record contracts with the lawyer. So I went to see a lawyer in London to say, well, look, you know, this has happened. This is the contract I've got. Have I got anything here? And he looked at it and he goes, yeah, you could take them for a lot of money on this. So as a lawyer, though, I have got to say this one thing to you, though. I think this is important. If you sue them, you'll never be friends with them. Anybody who's been sued will not be friends with you. I know that from experience. So you have to know that before you go ahead. And I had that decision to make, and it was like, well, a chunk of cash or friendship, and so I sort of run, you know, you can't buy friends, can you? So I took that decision to not proceed into court or anything like that, which would have been I've always thought, looking back, that was definitely the right decision.
Friendship over money, definitely.
Yeah, it probably was the right decision. You get a really nice mention on at least the liner notes, I think, of the CD and DVD bundle, saying that for all intents and purposes, you were the heart and soul of early Madness, the real go-getter and the doer of things. So that must have been fairly redeeming to see that in print.
Yeah, it was. It's really nice to get that recognition. When I say, you know, things had that little rift, but yeah, time heals all wounds. And yeah, I mean, I did put a lot in those days. I say I had that little motorbike, and I was here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, I remember one time there was been, oh, well, what's John doing? He's up doing anything, isn't he? You know, people didn't understand management, and I was at the time working in the two-tone offices in Camden Town above the shoe shop. There's this little tiny pokey office that the two-tone Empire was running from. And I worked in there with specials manager. And Lee came along one day and said, right, I want to know what you do. So you can go home now, and I'm going to do your job. Okay. And came back at the end of the day, he goes, you can keep it.
He was like, good luck.
Good luck with that. Yeah. The phone going left, right, and centre, and people wanting this and wanting that, and wanting an answer now. And yeah, it's
and it's all the stuff that nobody actually sees because it's all behind the scenes.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And where it should stay, because the whole thing is trying to make everything run smooth. And, you know, the more it gets noticed, that means you're not doing your job so well.
Right. No one wants to see how the sausage gets made, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, they're just looking sizzling in the pan.
There you go. So if we could maybe fast forward a little bit to
Uh-huh.
1986. The band was basically about to call it quits. They released the single "Waiting for the Ghost Train," and they
Yep.
brought you back for the music video, which I thought was really appropriate. You know, you were there for the beginning, you were there for the end, kind of like bookending this part
Yep.
of their career. What
Yep.
was that experience like, being with them as they were making what they thought was going to be their final video?
It was just fun. It was always working with the band. It was just fun because there was just always what you don't see on the videos is all the banter, the reacting together of the band as they come up with these ideas that they feed into actually get into the video, because they come up with a rough idea of things, and obviously for that they had the suits made and they got their little. But actually, it's only when they get filming that somebody will say, "Hey, why don't we do this? Oh, why don't we try doing this?" And well, how do we do that? Well, we did the step ladder. Somebody get a step ladder, right? Okay, and a lot of the stuff comes together actually in the moment of making those videos. Are incredibly creative events, and just absolutely a nightmare for film crew. Yeah, it's a mixture of a lot of preparation and a lot of thought that goes in before, but a lot of riffing. It's jazz. To go back to the earlier themes, what's it called when you're just playing a solo and it's spontaneous? There's a word for it.
Improvisation.
What? Improvisation. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, they improvise, but it's not just. They don't just improvise all over the place. It's done on a very tight set of rules, and it's the preparation's gone into that in order to be able to do that improv. And the same with the Madness videos. Lee especially puts a lot of thought into some of the ideas that will come up to it, but they'll all get together and talk about it and discuss it before, come up with ideas, thoughts, but then on the day, then they start improvising, and you get almost manic energy that can get going, and
Sounds like controlled chaos.
controlled chaos. Yes, very much so. And a huge amount of fun to do. Yeah, they gave me a character to play for that thing.
With the mustache.
Yeah, there was this a UK entertainer who's a variety entertainer who did a lot of television hosting. It's called Bruce Forsyth. He was a big name in the UK at the time on the telly, and I was just doing a pastiche. Not impersonation of Brucey, but that I was just very inspired by that type of old school smarmy game show host. So so it just sort of they'll throw you that as the idea. That's the deal. Then let you go in, sort your own stuff out to make it work and make it happen. So the Tash was my idea. That was. So I was able to put, great. I was able to put a little something into it as well.
A straw-headed woman and a barrel-chested man, a pocket full of posies with a hand brim full of sand. Ooh, waiting for the train that never comes. A rat chasing the tumbleweeds across the sandy floor. A drift along the platform through the ticket office store. Ooh, waiting for the train that never comes. Waiting for the train that never comes. But don't tell me that.
So what did you do then after you were no longer working with the band? What was life like?
Well, we're living with a new baby and a dog and a canary in a one-room apartment. I got some work. I did a bit of work actually for Stiff Records for a while, doing some A&R. I think that was partly a bit of a payoff kind of thing. I don't know whether that was guilt feelings on behalf of the boss, but that didn't last. And then I worked for a management company called Black Hill. So I got to know these guys. Black Hill Enterprises. They were one of the big things they did, I don't know if you've seen footage of the Rolling Stones playing in Hyde Park for the Brian Jones Memorial gig, and that was put on by Black Hill Enterprises. So, and they Pink Floyd's manager, they were Ian Dury's manager. So they left Pink Floyd by then, but so they've been in the business a long time, and they were a nice couple of guys, Andrew King and Peter Jenner. So I worked for them for quite a long time. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I had the Clash on the books for a while. So Ian was in and out all the time, Ian Dury, some other different bands. We had Ingrid Mansfield-Allman, she's a backing singer. She's really good. Who else? Oh, can't think. Well, so definitely the Clash and Ian Dury would be the big names that people would know.
So you did continue in a career with music then? I mean, on the production side or the management side?
Yeah, for a while. But then I went to college and ended up going, when I was about 30, went to university, did a degree. Before that though, whilst I was working for the Jenner King at Black Hill, I got divorced and got literally left holding the baby. So I was then juggling single parenthoods with work and working in the music business. It's very difficult to do that and be a parent like that. I
have a lot of odd hours and
a lot of odd hours. I was running around all. Luckily, I could drop a door off to my mum or one of my sisters sometimes, but you don't like doing that too much.
Well, and that wasn't really that common in the 80s to have a single father with a child.
Very uncommon.
Yeah.
Unusual. I didn't know any other people in my position.
So you were smashing gender stereotypes. Good for you.
I was, yeah.
Good for you.
Pioneer. But it did mean that was one of the reasons I decided to go to college and get out of the music business. So I decided to get out and try and get into something which was be more regular house. So I did that.
So I got to ask, just personal curiosity, because I'm a college professor. What did you study?
I studied modern political history at the University of London.
Oh, wow. And then did you make that into a new career then, or?
No, not directly. I mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's not actually not a call for history from the Australians.
Thanks for humoring me there. I was just very curious.
No. Well, I mean, what I did, I ended up getting a job running a project in schools. There was a project for children that truanted.
Oh.
And to try and keep them in school.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was an American import from originally Massachusetts, where they developed the program. And we kind of brought it in and we're piloting it in schools. So I've worked with a lot of 15-year-olds. That was a lot of fun.
But more importantly, it sounds like that you made a difference in some of their lives, which is really, really good.
I do believe I did. I think I definitely made a difference in some lives. So there's one kid I particularly remember. And we were running this project in his school. And it was like a peer group that he built up within the school, and they could decide for themselves things that they wanted to go camping. They wanted to go to a theme park. So, but it was too far for a day trip. So, we couldn't afford to a hotel, but we could afford to go camping. So we decided we'd get some tents. We managed to borrow some tents, but we needed money for the petrol and to get into the park. And then we tried to raise money, and there was some school funds, and they needed to approach the headmaster and ask if they could have access to some of these school funds to go towards their trip. And so I suggested, they said, "Oh, you go and ask. No, it's your thing. You have to ask." This young kid, Douglas, he was bright lad, I often wonder what happened to him, but I really hope he did well. But he was saying, no, I couldn't ask the headmaster. He doesn't like me. Well, you know, it doesn't matter. I said, I don't like him. So, yeah, but, you know, it's not about whether someone likes you or not. You can still show basic respect towards somebody. He's got something you want, and you can ask him. It doesn't matter. After a bit of chatting this through, he went ahead, this young kid, to sort of shy. You know, he had a bit of bravado, but you could tell underneath he was shy. But he went and made his appointment with the headmaster, went in and got treated with the respect that he'd earned by making that, and came back and he said, "You give us money, but he wants us to do something for him." What we didn't say, so we had to then come up with something which we could do for the school to get the money. So the headmaster, they said this was a really great headmaster. This guy was a star. I mean, this was a guy who would be at the breakfast club serving up the breakfast to the kids. You know, he was a hands-on guy. So we came up with an idea of how we could do something for the school. One of the kids said, "Well, what about the toilets above the gym? They're horrible. They really need painting." So we offered to paint.
Wow.
So they said they'd offer to do it, and the headmaster came, "Yeah, that sounds a deal to me." So that's what they did, and we got the money. We went on our camping trip, and we went to the theme park. And
That's fantastic.
guys had a
Naughty boys in nasty schools, headmasters breaking all the rules, having fun and playing pool, smashing up the woodwork tools. All the teachers in the pub, passing round a ready rub, trying not to think of when the lunchtime bell will ring again. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learnt at school was how to bend, not break the rules. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference too. The headmasters had enough today. All the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next to school. Every turn that is the rule. Sits alone and vents his pain. Same old backsides again. All the small ones.
So, you know, that was, we definitely had a rapprochement. I mean, after I started looking after the daughter on my own, he definitely was able to sort of voice to be proud of me for doing that. And that sort of made a big difference. So once you can actually have that adult conversation with your own parents, you start to understand, well, this is what it's about. I mean, this is what growing up is. This is how we grow up. It's inside. Yeah, I took those into that job.
That old chestnut is, you can't believe how stupid your parents were until you were a parent.
Yeah, that's it.
So what did you do musically in the other parts of your life?
Well, for a little while, I did I did write some songs with a friend. We never really got much with it. But, you know, we had fun doing it. We demoed a few, but we kind of had this idea that maybe we could become the new Holland Dozy Holland. But it's a difficult world to break into, the songwriting world. And, you know, I say I had a small baby, life kind of takes over. But then I went along to, I did get very much involved with a band called the Skiff Scats. I don't know if you come across them.
Interesting.
They were another friend of ours, Tony, who worked in one of the big parks in London, Hampstead Heath, which is a very big wild area. It's a park which is it's an area which has never been cultivated. It's always so it was Victorians kind of preserved it as this area where it's very hilly and woods everywhere and streams. It's a little bit of the countryside in the middle of London, and the guys worked there, and they in their lunch breaks just used to start playing. One of the guys had a banjo. They taught themselves to play, and they're playing bits of bluegrass and that. And
I was going to ask, they look like a skiffle band from that album cover.
Skiffle, they were very much a skiffle band. And we started playing. I started joining in with them. Very early days, Carl and Lee played along with them.
Oh, wow.
Joined them up on stage, playing percussion. But they kind of stopped doing it because the they were getting too many Madness bands coming on just to see Kyle and Lee, and not really into the band, and it's and they felt it was overshadowing the efforts that the other guys were making, so they kind of pulled back, and I kind of stepped into Carl's shoes on that one really, and took up playing the washboard, and bought myself a whole bunch of thimbles and started learning that, and we played some really good stuff. There's that, and we had a single out called Cripple Creep, which is an old bluegrass number. It's quite well known. There was a little sort of bit of a scene going, which the Pogues were a part of. They were kind of peripheral to that, but this sort of new wave of folky stuff coming up. And I had played with the Pogues at this point as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, because my daughter's mother had played in the band with Shane McGowan. And so I got to know them, and I did a bit of managing with their bands for a while, which stopped when we split up. But then I was in a bar meeting with Shane and some of the guys, and Carter Reardon, who's the bass player, she was like, "Can I borrow your drum kit?" Oh, why? Well, because I can play the drums. Well, now I could bring my drum kit along, but I'm coming with it. So. So that's how I ended up playing the bass rather than the drums for the Pogues. So I played drums for the Pogues for the first few months. There was this sort of question, Jem, the banjo player, he said, you've got to put more into this. You need to go to rehearse more. We're serious about this. We're going places. And again, single parent, you think, well, I can't do it. There's a choice here, and it's not a choice. So I just said, no, I can't. In all fairness, I can't give you what you need. So bowed out gracefully from that.
Were you on any of their recordings, or was this?
Oh no. This is when we were playing the pubs of King's Cross, the really seedy days.
All right.
It was good. A lot of good fun. It was a lot of hard drinking, but
the stories we've heard about Shane are legendary. So.
Yeah, they're only half of the reality. It's believe me. So I played with him. So and there was there's a band called The Men They Couldn't Hang. So my ex-wife then she played with them for a while. And there's a few other bands that were about playing different types of folk music and that. And there's a nice little scene. It's all acoustic music. Acoustic instruments. We did all over. We just went all over the place with that. Always made enough money to cover costs. And then after a bit, we just decided to stop as we realised it felt like we were kind of going back around again. And so it was we've got all we can out of this. We squeezed this lemon. So we had a meeting. We just all sort of looked at each other. Do you want to stop? Yeah, that was the end of that. But it was great fun while we did it. It really was. We had a little thing going when we played. The guys would bring along a Debbie John, and they used to bring this lethal wine. They grow vegetables in their garden. Anything they grew, they turn into wine, and it was always very, very strong. And they fill it up, and then we hand it out to the audience. So, right, we're going to play this song now, and we're going to see how fast we can play it. And you've got to see if you can finish that before we finish the song. Which is a really neat trick. early on in the set because suddenly all the people down the front are kind of getting married. And so they're dancing around a lot more for the rest of the set. Yeah, just lots of little things like that. We had a guy from played fiddle with us, Cedric, self-described South of the Mason Dixie. He was our ringer. He was the real deal. I think it was Alabama. He was strong. Anyway, he really could play. I remember that everyone could play. It was one of the most musically adroit bands I played in. They're better musicians in Madness or Folks.
Wow.
But it's yeah, that's what music's about. It's about just enjoying what you're doing in the moment.
What you got, Polly?
I got nothing.
What is that?
That's
Get
that's
crabs? Get crabs?
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
Get crabs.
What is
Okay, Laurie, get crabs. So jump forward a few years, and I moved to Scotland to be with my current partner. She lives in Edinburgh, so that's where I live now, and working with the NHS in community mental health services. So that's what I'm doing now, and to keep myself entertained, I joined a band. They asked me to join, and they're a surf band, and because I was crabs. So this is our single that we recorded. Get crabs. All songs we wrote ourselves, available on Bandcamp.
And of course, you've made at least one appearance at House of Fun.
We did, yes. It's on YouTube, that appearance. I'm very proud of it. Just mentioned I'm back on the drums, so I've come right full circle, right around, and loving being back.
I'll have you know, I was lucky enough to get a couple of minutes in. I was in between running around at House of Fun, but was able to catch you, and I thought it was a very interesting take on surf, and I enjoyed the few minutes I was able to get in there. Our mutual friend, John Young, suggested I've got to go see you, and it was lovely to know that you were there.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you look on YouTube, we've been at a place called the Leith Depot. Leith being a part of Edinburgh, and the Leith Depot is a little venue, and we did a gig there recently, which has got some good tracks on that. So, and like you say, it's our own take on surf. We're not into slavishly following. It's all about. I like that. Same with the Skiff scats, we weren't into following, and with the Pogues, again, you can play it how the canon plays it, or you can do your own thing. And my take has always been, look, if you work and practice so that you can play it exactly like the record, just play the record. You know what I mean? Why bother?
Right, then what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, just play the record, it's there already. So we do our own thing, and I've always wanted to have that. A unique stamp, I guess, on the music. Same with Madness with the ska. You know, they were never into sort of sounding exactly like the Kingston studio bands that laid down the original stuff, because that's all there. In a way that as in the first single, Prince, that's what Lee was kind of saying. It's like, if you really want it, this is there to listen to. This is like tribute. and it's part of what we have, but it's, you know, it's going to be our own unique stamp on it. I think it's important in music to do that.
That it is, and you've certainly left your stamp. I think all of Madness fandom owes you a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, well, I like to think that my early days drumming sort of laid down a certain groove that survived.
And that it does.
Through it.
And then the other thing I need to hear it from you. I mean, the stories are legendary, but how did you get the name Bed and Breakfast Man?
Well, early days when we were rehearsing, when I was playing the drums, and we'd rehearse sober. In fact, even before when I was started playing guitar, we rehearsed over in NW5 or quite close, stay over at Chris's because it's kind of late to get back and it's easy to just go and stay. And I'd sleep on his sofa, and that's basically it. Yeah, when me and Carl, we used to go out and around the area, we'd go out and meet out with friends, and we'd go out to the pub and then we go to a party afterwards, and then there'd be the underground had finished and there's no buses in. It's a long walk home. We used to sleep in people's cars. Back in the day, the people didn't lock their cars so much. And you could just open the car, get in the back seat and stretch out. We'd fight over who was in the back and the front because, of course, in the UK, most cars are stick shift.
Oh, that sounds painful.
If you're in the front seat, that's... So we try and look for automatics. We'd try and get an automatic if we could. So yeah, actually, more than... Well, I did sleep on Chris's sofa. We were all likely to be found sleeping in the back of somebody's car.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and chatting, John. This has really been cool.
Absolute pleasure, Laurie. It's been great to meet you. It really has.
Likewise.
No.
Thanks so much, John.
Okay. And, yeah.
All right.
Take care.
You too. Have a good night.
Duke, take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Oh, that was the Bed and Breakfast Man.
What did you think, Polly?
Well, the man has a lot of stories, and so I was familiar with the fact that he still continued to work with Stiff Records a little bit. Did not know of his association with the Pogues.
No, I didn't
was
either.
Really cool.
Yeah. And I didn't know about these other bands like Crabs. I didn't know about any of that. So that was really kind of cool. We get exposed to some new music here.
Yeah. Guy with a lot of stories.
I hope that, and I know I've said this about some of our other guests, but I really hope that John sits down and writes a memoir at some point, because he must really have, I feel like we just barely scratched the surface. He must really have some interesting stories, not just about the time with Madness, although I think that probably is a whole volume in and of itself. But, I'd love to read more.
Yeah, same here. I would love to know more about the guy. Very thankful for the amount of time he was able to give us. And fantastic episode.
And he was a very, very gracious guest, I have to say, too. He was very, very thoughtful. So for the closing song today, I have something that I only just became aware of, but I think maybe you were aware of it a little longer than I was. And that is the Lockdown Allstars. That is our super group, if you will, that our friend Mr. Skiff helped put together. The Lockdown Allstars featuring Chris Foreman and also Big Jim Paterson, who is of Dexy's Midnight Runners, if I believe. Yeah? And so the Specialized Project, we've talked about them before. They're the UK cancer charity. And back on October 31st of last year, they put out a 4-CD album called My Way. And it's basically ska covers of not just they're calling it the Rat Pack, but it's more than just the original 5 Rat Pack. They were doing a lot of different standards from, like a lot of the Vegas lounge acts and stuff like that. And this is a cover of Buona Sera, which was made famous by Louis Prima in the 50s. As you know, Polly, I'm Italian on my mother's side, and I adore Louis Prima. So I heard this for the first time today. I know some of our listeners have probably heard it before. But this is the Lockdown Allstars featuring Chris Foreman and Big Jim Paterson with their cover of Buona Sera. Wishing you a Buona Sera, listeners. It's a goodbye from me.
And that's a goodbye for me. Go get a beer, Stateside Madness.
Senorita, kiss me